Happy politics, and welcome to another edition of BC Poly Hotstove. You can't go out and see your friends, but you can always see your friends right here on Hotstove. I'm one of those friends. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Orca. My name is Maclean K. This is my living room, and I'm joined in a socially distant manner by...
Look up. Look way, way up. It's the friendly neighborhood giant, Jordan. Jordan Bateman, Vice President Communications for the Independent Contractors and Businesses Association. And a special shout out to all the people who love to text Maclean after the show complaining about me and things I've said. Hey, I've got a phone number too. Jordan at icba.ca. Email me, complain to me. I'm happy to take the heat.
You can by all means keep texting me about complaints and praise for Jordan, and certainly praise for me.
It's funny, Maclean never mentions the praise I get, just the complaints. It's
well, those are more fun to bring up.
Well, okay, I can tell you I have some scalding hot takes today as well, ready to go. But let's.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna just go ahead and mute my phone right now. Okay. So the first order of business, I actually just got off the phone, not the phone, I just got off Zoom, the exact same computer I'm talking to you on right now, with the new interim leader of the BC Liberal Party, veteran Prince George MLA and longtime former cabinet minister Shirley Bond was voted in by caucus, I guess just yesterday. The other development is the new caucus chair is Stephanie Cadieux, also a veteran MLA, in her case from Surrey. Two women in arguably the two most prominent roles in caucus. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, 28 MLAs left. Shirley and Stephanie, certainly good relationships throughout caucus, obviously, since there was a vote to put them into place. Not a huge surprise. I think at some point we've got to talk about the ongoing discussions of Andrew Wilkinson and the allegations of sexism. That should be one piece. But can I tell you who I think who is the biggest loser in this election of Shirley Bond and Steph Cadieux?
Yes, and I'm just going to go ahead and make sure that my phone is in fact on mute.
All right. It's no secret I'm not the world's biggest Todd Stone fan. I think that's pretty clear. And the leadership race right now, it looks like Todd Stone versus Alice Ross versus Kevin Falcon. That seems to be how it's breaking down. Todd Stone, my understanding is that there were two MLAs, both of whom, by the way, would have been excellent choices in these interim roles. Peter Millibar, former mayor of Kamloops, had, I thought, an excellent first term as an opposition MLA last time. Well respected within caucus, certainly very liked within caucus. My understanding is he had been kicking the tires on being the interim leader. And Greg Kylo, another great guy, shoe swap, just, two fantastic people, just like Stephanie and Shirley are fantastic people as well. So there was no losers in this, except for Todd Stone, because clearly Kylo and Millibar much closer to Todd. And if there had been any advantage towards, for a leadership candidate and having their people in place, running the party and the shadow cabinet and all that sort of stuff, it would have been Millibar and Kylo helping Todd Stone. Clearly, caucus decided to go a different way. I think that should be a little bit of a flag to Todd Stone that if he thinks he's walking out with majority caucus support into a leadership race, seems to me he probably isn't, judging if I'm reading these tea leaves correctly. It should also be a little bit of a message to Mike Lee, or it's a message from Mike Lee. Like I heard nothing about Mike Lee putting his name forward, nothing about him wanting either of these positions, which does make me wonder if he is looking to run in the full-on leadership race. So just a couple of little, like the politics underneath the politics of it, which I find a little bit interesting.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the role the leadership of caucus would play in a leadership race for the party, and that was actually the question that I asked Shirley: is what role will you have in indeed setting the rules and all that kind of thing? And her response was basically, I will have nothing to do with that. Yeah. I will not be taking part in it. I will not be a candidate in it, you would think, obviously, and will not be endorsing someone, which is something the last interim leader of the party did midway through the last leadership contest. And so, yeah, she was made it very clear that she will have absolutely nothing to do with that other than wishing whoever succeeds her well.
Yeah, and I think traditionally that has been, certainly for the last 20 years or so, interim leaders.
That is the norm.
Yeah, and interim leaders, they're a bit like the backup quarterback or backup goalie. They're always, end up being more popular during the race at some point. Think of all the calls for Ronna Ambrose to become the full-on CPC leader when she was interim. I'm sure Shirley Bond will get the same kind of buzz at some point, like, oh, maybe we should have just kept Shirley. But you want those folks to stay out of it, and they need to look completely independent, but also not just look independent, but be independent of the leadership race. I think they'll have an easier job of doing that than maybe Milbar and Kylo would have had, since there's a perception that Milbar is very close to Todd Stone. So, it doesn't surprise me that Shirley stepped out of that race. I don't think anyone was clamoring for a Shirley Bond-led party in going into 2024, 2023, depending on...
including Shirley Bond.
Including Shirley Bond. Yeah, in fact, if this election had been a year later, I'm not even sure Shirley Bond would have run for re-election. I mean, she's been in MLA since 2001. She would have been maxed out on her pension at that point in 2021. Not that there's a huge difference between 19 years and 20 years in pensionable earnings, but it is something to think about and consider. So, what Wilkinson's decision does, and look, it was clear caucus was not going to rally behind Wilkinson for another minute, let alone a whole nother brief session. That's why we had the leak out about the sexism issues. It was the caucus's way of saying, hit the road, bud. But it does trigger, I believe, a 1-year countdown now, unless the party changes its rules, which it can, but unless they change its rules, we'll have a new permanent leader by roughly November 1st, 2021.
Yeah. And if you read Gavin Dew's piece on the weekend, written...
And who didn't?
Well, exactly. Gavin's very hot right now. He's so hot right now.
He's so hot.
It's so hot right now. And but that was basically Gavin's point, is that yes, Wilkinson resigning does trigger a 1-year countdown clock, but so if circumstances are such that they should extend it or change it, I mean, they have the ability. And I mean, we've talked about this on the show before. I mean, I think the ideal situation would be having the new leader win his or her new title in front of people, rather than a Zoom event on a Sunday with reporters who are forced to watch and pretty much no one else. And I mean, if that's the way it has to go, I'm sure they'll do their best, but I mean, obviously that's not ideal.
No, exactly. And that's why I think you punt this to February, March-ish 2022.
Yeah.
It's 15 months. Look, Shirley's the kind of leader, like, you're never going to wake up in the morning and find Shirley is embarrassed the party. She's been a loyal soldier for a long time. She's incredibly competent. She understands multiple files. She was a cabinet minister in like 17 different files. Martin Brown has signed off on her for some perplexing reason. Martin loves her. But, not because she's not lovable, but because Martin doesn't love anyone in caucus anymore. So it's, I don't know why Shirley gets to escape that.
Yes.
But
it can be difficult to parse the weekly 4,000-word essay, but yes, I think you're right.
Yes, but for some reason, Shirley gets a pass for whatever reason from Martin. But anyways, not that he's a player in the party, but it does kind of show you that she is widely respected. I don't picture, Horgan's not going to bully Shirley Bond,
not successfully.
Not successfully. Shirley's a scrapper. Shirley's one of the better hecklers. She would. She's much too, dignified to ever suggest such a thing as heckling. But she's one of the best hecklers in the house. So they'll be good kind of back and forth. Yeah, there'll be good back and forth between them. And the main thing is she's experienced. She's steady. And like I said, there'll be no embarrassing the party between now and whenever the new leader comes in. And there'll also be no weird policy shifts. She's not going to try to come in with crazy, we're going to do things this way. It'll be good. And Steph Cadieux, obviously well-liked among her colleagues. Caucus chair, I mean, Jackie Taggart was caucus chair for the last couple of years. She was reelected. I'm not sure if she put her name forward or not, but it is good to change it up every once in a while, and Stephanie will do a fine job with that. It'll be interesting to see who ends up as caucus whip, although not sure whipping will be as important in a blowout majority that the NDP have. But that is another option, another job that they'll need to fill, and then all the various cabinet, shadow cabinet roles and things like that.
Yeah, and the House leader and all that.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, I think these are the two most important. And your point about the whip being suddenly much less important is well taken. I mean, here's what you're going to get in Shirley Bond. I mean, I think you basically covered it. You need somebody who can manage the business of the legislature itself for the next, let's call it a year, question period, all that kind of stuff. But also, how to cooperate or not, case by case with the government on the pandemic. She said that she very much plans to do that, to go back to the ways of the summer, while continuing to hold the government to account, but wanting to work on the pandemic files. The other thing that I thought was interesting is she said that she plans on taking Horgan at his word when it comes to being open to ideas and legislation, even from anywhere, other parties. I actually think this is a pretty this could be a sly and clever move. Is that if they want to put Horgan in a position of contradicting himself, start putting forth some ideas and some private members' bills. Where will they end up? Almost certainly the dustbin, but that won't be the point.
No, exactly, and yeah, okay. Sure, like make him look like the bad guy. The truth is, John Horgan has lied before to the people of British Columbia, and he's lying when he says he's going to take ideas from the opposition. There's no doubt about it. Stephanie Cadu's had how many cracks at a wage equity bill, which the NDP, in their heart of hearts, support wage equity. Obviously, this has been a bread and butter issue, but they'll never pass that bill because they want the credit for it, not allow it to go to a BC Liberal MLA. Yeah. So things like that. I get what she says about wanting to go along to get along on COVID. I would suggest strongly that you don't have to be sharp on COVID criticism, but there are things that are happening that are perfectly valid for an opposition party to bring up and say, like, hold up, how did we get from here to there? Why are live plays canceled but movie theaters open? Why are restaurants open but not places of worship? Like, there are little, things like that all of us go, well, it's been interesting the last few days to see more and more kind of just a little bit of shine come off of the NDP's handling of this, of Dr. Bonnie's handling of the whole thing, and then how people are trying to square circles, right? And essentially, I think maybe it was Adrian Dixon came out and said, look, the further you dig into all these rules, the more you'll see that there are contradictions and problems and things that don't quite line up. But it's the spirit of the rules we want you to obey. Okay, but the contradictions do matter, right? Like, that's a nice kind of gloss over everything on top. But you puncture the ice there. The cold water does matter underneath.
Oh, absolutely it does. I mean, we had tickets for this coming Saturday to go to the Butchert Gardens Christmas lights.
Yes.
Just my wife, my son, and I. And Butchert had already made it very clear that you have to wear masks. There's no food service. It's they had reduced capacity, I think, by more than half. In fact, I think a great deal more than half. So we had judged it to be a pretty safe Christmas plan.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's outdoors. It's now canceled. By provincial order. So, I mean, some of these things you're kind of like, well, really? Was that? I mean, is it that bad that we had to cancel that? I mean, I'm not suggesting that I want to run around without a mask hugging everyone, but really?
Yeah.
Especially here in Victoria. So, I mean, there are things like that you're quite correct to say when you take the pulse on social media, you're seeing a lot more. Really? Why? How come this? And how did we end up here? I thought all this stuff we did during the summer and it was to avoid all this. I mean, these are fair questions.
Yeah, drive-through events being another one, right?
Yeah.
Why can't I drive through Williams Park in Langley and see their Christmas light displays? Never leaving the car, never leaving my family, windows up, drive through that.
Yeah,
but I can drive through Starbucks, Tim Hortons, McDonald's, and actually interact with another person. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. And that's where Dix was like, well, it's events. They were really straining to try to justify that. But it doesn't make, it just does not make sense, right? Like, why not? Like, what is the issue here that we're worried about? A drive-through Williams Park event takes maybe 10 minutes total. So it's not like even you're stopping to use the bathroom and you're worried about people congregating there. Like, just close the bathrooms and, make people go when they, like, that is the crux of the problem. I found what, the Catholic, I believe it was the Catholic Church, the Archdiocese in Vancouver, came out kind of gently critical of this, and I don't blame them, right? Like, there was this sense that, oh, the faith community is behind us in canceling all these events. I gotta tell you, like, pastors I know, very kind, patient, generous people by nature, kind of now tweeting me, DMing, texting exasperation, concern. Christmas in a lot of faiths is a key time of year, end of the year, key time of year for a lot of faiths. And now you're kind of gutting a bunch of those traditions. It's hard. It's hard, and to claim there's kind of blanket support for it, it isn't quite true. Now, Dr. Bonnie says this is an Ironman race, not a marathon. She, by the way, the weird flex yesterday that she had done a marathon before, which I found hilarious, and then made a joke that she probably ran it on water. At least that's what we would have thought in the spring. But sure enough, someone, it was either McLeod or McElroy, one of the Macs, found a page with all of Bonnie Henry's half marathon and marathon times, so you can run against Bonnie on your treadmill if you want. Anyways, kind of like it's just, the more these rules kind of come in and out, the more of these head-scratching loopholes you have. For example, I manage my kids' hockey team. We've been doing socially distant practices for a few weeks because we're in Fraser Health. So we were shut down from games about 10 days ago. Well, now we can play games against other kids in Langley, which is great. Like, great. I'd rather watch, the kids would rather play games than practice, bluntly, which is fantastic. But you're like, how can they play games when, we have 50 people in an arena, but we can't go to church, like, with 45 people, socially distant, no singing, masked up. Like, these are the kind of things that start to make you start to worry about what's happening.
Yeah, well, and there was confusion over the weekend too, where it was not made clear in the initial orders that theaters, cinemas have to close. And so they stayed open because they were not specifically told, oh, by the way, you have to close. And then there was news this morning that they were, I guess, quietly told, no, the order does apply to you. Yeah, I'm going to have to, it was something I saw this morning around 8.
Kind of planning to take the family to see Wonder Woman 1984 on Boxing Day. That's sort of my plan here. Well, I hope they're open by then.
Well, yeah, we're in the God only knows stage of this whole thing.
It's so hard, and it's hard on. I don't know. I got to quit watching these press conferences because I become more and more jaded every time I do, and I see the flaws now in this ongoing communications strategy that's going on. No one cares. Like, you go onto Twitter, and God bless the reporters who are doing this day in, day out, asking these questions. But there is, reporters have always had black senses of humor. But you go on, 10 people died over the weekend, close to 2,000 new cases. And we're all kind of joking around. Not about that, but, about, like, why can't I go to, what's the difference between an art exhibition and an art exhibition opening? Like, it's not that we've lost the plot, but it's just we're fatigued. It's, she stands up there and says, this is not for forever, it's just for 2 weeks. Yeah, but that's what you said 2 weeks ago, and 2 weeks before that, 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 and it's been 9 months of 2 weeks. And it's human nature. You're exhausted. You're exhausted of it. All you feel like you've done is sacrifice. 2020 has been a shitty year for everybody. If you're having a great 2020, email Maclean and write a piece about it, because I'd love to know who you are. But
please do.
For most of us, it's been a even year or negative. So 2 more weeks, that feels like an eternity when you've already been in it 9 months.
But it feels like an eternity when you don't believe it. I mean, it's not 2 more weeks. I mean, you just in Lower Mainland, you just had 2 weeks, and then that was extended because it's not working, and so it's frustrating. Of course it is, and it's. Yeah, I like you. I do not always watch the Dr. Bonnie press conferences because, I mean, they follow a formula, and most of it, this is not a criticism. Well, you know what? I guess it is a criticism. Most of what you hear is not particularly useful. Everyone is there for the numbers, the stats, new orders if there are any, and then that's kind of it.
Yeah.
I don't.
And then the very hyper specific questions of random things that whatever poor reporter has been tasked with getting that day.
Yeah, and then the worst thing is occasionally you'll see, and I will not name names here, but you'll see either a reporter or somebody who is hyper vigilant about watching these daily press conferences. And again, if that's you, God bless you. But getting on somebody because they don't watch. Well, if you just watch the daily briefings every day, well, no one watches daily briefings of anything. Yeah. But it's just not a realistic expectation. Also, they're at 3:00 on weekdays. I mean. Yeah. Unless you're being paid to watch, chances are your attention is elsewhere and should be. So, I mean, there's this ridiculous expectation that people are tuning in to watch a press conference, which runs absurdly long, 2 or 3 times a week. It's just, it's nuts.
90 minutes minimum. That's a long press conference. And then you got to see, like, Dix again yesterday went through the numbers in French. And God bless him for doing it. But number one, I can't imagine anyone... even Radio Canada is clipping him with numbers in French. Number one. Number two, I looked up on StatsCan the number of French-only households in British Columbia. It was a staggering 0.0%. 6,500 or so prefer French to any other language.
Prefer. Okay, because you tweeted it, you said French only, and I was like, I would be shocked if it's that high.
Yeah, exactly.
But okay, prefer French. French. There's Millardville. I gotcha.
All right, but you're like, Meanwhile, if you look at the list of most commonly spoken languages in BC, French is 6th or 7th. So where is the South Asian MLA who could step in for one of these things and deliver the message in Punjabi? Where is the Chinese MLA who can step in and deliver it in Cantonese or Mandarin? Like, let's switch it up. Like, I get it. There is the odd question where Dix has to, basically bail out Dr. Bonnie because it's more political than it is public health. Fine. Yeah. He can still be there. Just add another person to kind of break it up a bit. I don't know. It's so hard. It worked well in the spring, but now in month 8 or 9, it's starting to fall apart. And
well, and it's not working. It's not working. The numbers are proof that whatever they're doing right now is not working. So, I mean, to your point, yes, try something different. Yeah. Because you're right. I mean, yes, you're right.
Yeah. Anyways, we should talk with something else. We've talked this stuff.
It's too much. People probably get enough pandemic content when they're turning into Hotstove. Who you had hot takes? That was both of.
Yeah. Well, I talked about the Todd Stone issue and kind of losing. This should be a signal to him that he needs to rethink that. I'm a little worried about the group that's emerging for the Liberal leadership. Falcon, I'm writing down. Falcon, Stone, and who am I forgetting? Oh,
Alice
Ross. They're all kind of Stone's a little bit younger, but they're all kind of the same age. They're all kind of in that late 40s into their 50s. I'm not sure. Actually, I'm not sure how old Ellis is.
He's young at heart. Anything.
He's young at heart. But
I don't know.
Falcon's his late 50s. He would say mid 50s, but let's level. It's late 50s. Stone's got to be
gusts up to late 50s. Yeah.
Stone's got to be closing in on 50.
I believe so, but I don't actually know that.
And then Ellis is ageless apparently because I've never Wikipedia'd him, so it's a great question. Ellis will tell me that he's 25 and should therefore be the leader because he's young and fresh. But there's a big disconnect. We've talked about the disconnect with the BC Liberals with women. They lost every demographic of female in this last election. They also lost young men by 20 points or so, if you believe the Angus Reid exit polls, and why not? That is a significant problem too, and you've got to find someone who can contextualize BC Liberal, or whatever the party gets called, values for that generation. And I'm not sure, I'm just not sure that these three can do that quite yet. And I'm not talking about, they got to be good on TikTok, but they have to be good. They have to be able to take the values and connect in people's minds. Our values are the solution to your issue. So our value of grow the economy, make sure you're making more money, prosperity for everyone, connects to affordability because you'll be able to afford that house, that little townhouse in Maple Ridge. That has to happen. I'm not sure that these three, that will be the challenge for these three. Can they come out and articulate that for that next generation? and then also for for a completely different gender. Can they do both? It'll be
Well, yeah,
interesting.
and even if, like, let's say any one of those three is able to successfully do all those things, and just hypothetically, it still will not look good on the party if there are no women running
Yeah.
for leader at all. None.
Yeah.
Even a distant, if it's just the four, a distant fourth place no hoper is still better, just so that, for the literally for the image of the four faces, than none at all. So you hope for the party's sake
Yeah.
that not a token female contender, but a legitimate one that we're not aware of or have mused over in the past is considering it and marshaling her resources. But it will not be a good look for the party if there are no women at all. It does help that there's an interim female leader, but I don't think that's enough.
No.
Or in fact, I'm sure it's not enough.
No, there's absolutely an opening here for a Leslyn Lewis like candidacy, and you could actually conceivably plot out a path to victory for that person. There is that. I don't know. There's just a little bit too much overlap, right? Like, Ellis. Okay, he wasn't. I mean, he may have been a cabinet minister for a week or two during Christie's weird wait for the world to end government, but he wasn't a cabinet minister. So, like, it's just the positioning, right? Stone is not an outsider. He's an insider. He was a minister of a couple files that did not go well under his watch. Falcon will kind of try to look like a little bit of an outsider, but the truth is he's been intimately involved for years. He was a cabinet minister under Campbell. Ross, second-term MLA, again, will try to look a little bit like an outsider, and doesn't have the same deep network within the party as far as the power brokers, whoever those are anymore. But, again, not the outsider. So there is that kind of opening for like an outsider female candidate to sort of cruise in. It's sort of that Diane Watts lane, although Diane is not doing it.
The current field, I'm wondering your response to this. The current field seems like three potential kingmakers and no kings. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Falcon's
queenmakers.
I think Falcon's the clear favorite.
I mean, it's so hard to say. I just, because we haven't gotten a good sense of what none of the candidates have said anything, so we don't know where they are on various issues. And also, I know this is certainly not true of you, but for me and probably a good portion of our audience, I really don't know what Kevin Falcon's been doing for the past several years, which is in no way a criticism, but just I don't have a good sense of where he's at.
Yeah, he's executive vice president of Anthem Properties, which is a large developer in the Lower Mainland. It's done a lot of progressive development work in Vancouver and also on the North Shore. Has seen firsthand how bureaucracy can choke out economic investment. So that would be, and he's been raising two young kids, and I believe he and Jessica live on the North Shore now with their family. So, and definitely been involved behind the scenes. To Kevin's credit, it would have been easy to avoid the Andrew Wilkinson leadership reign of error. But he didn't. He went out there, he tried to raise money, he tried to motivate the troops. I know for a fact he addressed caucus on at least 2 occasions under Wilkinson, trying to rally, some cohesion. So he didn't disappear. Not like, I mean, it's not a fair comparison because old leaders should disappear, frankly, but Christie basically fell off the map in BC Liberal land. Diane certainly disappeared. She was, blew in like a breeze and blew out like a breeze after she lost. Falcon hung around to try to help, and I think that will earn him some favor with, especially the executive members and caucus. He was. There was a feeling that there wasn't a lot of people on the BC Liberal side in the last 3 years, but Falcon certainly was not one of those ones who ran and hid. So it'll be interesting. You're right. He doesn't have a huge public profile, but you got to remember he doesn't need a public profile to win the leadership. He needs a profile within the party. Then you can go out there and rebuild your public profile. The problem is, and we can talk about the Wilkinson sexism article now if you want. The problem is, this is a party that has a problem attracting women, and the reason it has a problem attracting women is because like people, even non-political watchers, they have a pretty good spidey sense about where a party is on certain things, and the female spider sense was tingling a little bit, like, wait, something's wrong here. Something's not quite lining up with this Wilkinson character. We've seen now, the piece by Jane Thornthwaite, and then some other, Tracy Reddy's kind of jumped in with a Rob Shaw piece. There's clearly an issue there. This is a party that desperately needs to be able to wholeheartedly empower female candidates. And the front runner, Falcon, is someone who was on that roast video and didn't condemn Jane Thornthwaite right away. So that is going to be the pebble in his shoe of his candidacy, and he's got to come up with the correct answer on that, which I'm not sure what it is, frankly, but I'm sure he's got people working on it. But he needs to come up with the correct answer on how to move past that, because you just can't go into another election with any doubt whatsoever that you're for empowering women, getting as many women to the workforce as possible, economic prosperity to help the young and female. What can we do? Like, that has got to be job one of this party going forward. These are the values we have, and this is why it's so great for everyone, including women and minorities and Indigenous and all of those different groups.
Yeah, I mean, women are a majority in most of the world, but in British Columbia, I mean, you cannot write off that demographic. You have to appeal to them. I'm not just, I mean, yes, it's the right thing to do. I'm saying more just even politically. It's crazy to have that be the millstone around your neck. I mean, again, it's regressive, but it's also just, the math doesn't check out.
Yeah. And look, Wilkinson was losing before the roast stuff came out. But the roast stuff ended any chance he had the benefit of the doubt with women. When we're like, I don't like that. And even though it wasn't him making the comments, he didn't, I'm not sure, like, he almost lost both ways by throwing Jane under the bus, as she would say. That didn't look great. By kind of not, being inauthentic about it early on, that didn't look great. Like, it just did not. It just confirmed everyone's worries and suspicions. Not everyone's, but confirmed a lot of people's worries. He
swung too hard too late on that one.
Yeah, and look, like, this isn't, the legislature can be, has been, a systemically sexist place. Ask the female members of the press gallery who fought for the right to bear arms. Like it's been set up in a way for old white guys for years and decades, centuries. It's just kind of the way it goes. That is changing. It's changed thanks to the pioneers. It's changed thanks to very strong female leaders like Carol James, like Shirley Bond, frankly, who have been pushing back on that. It's good, but there's still a lot more that needs to happen there. Like, it's not enough. Michelle Mungal bringing her baby to the legislature can't be a one-off. Like, that can't be like the only thing that's happened in the last 10 years, that and right to bear arms. There's got to be constant growth and evolution of this legislature to do whatever it can to make 52% of the electorate feel welcome. Like, let's get on with it. It is mind-boggling to me. The BC Liberals had 11 ridings in Vancouver and didn't run a single female. That is a damning indictment. Might be the most damning indictment of Andrew Wilkinson's leadership. The fact that there was not one woman in that the largest city in British Columbia who would stand up and put their name on the ticket with him in this last election. And maybe it was just happenstance, chance, but come on, like, not one? That's disgusting. Well,
and they're probably, I mean, we talked about this in the context of the Greens as well, because they had similar problems. Right. And, when I asked Sonia Furstenau about this, she was actually really upfront about it, saying, you're right, it's nowhere near good enough. And it's just not, it's an order of magnitude below where it needs to be. Yeah. Now, yes, there are extenuating circumstances in that, in her case, she was a week into her, being leader. So the current crop of candidates really had nothing to do with her, or lack thereof. And also the fact that a snap election makes it harder for women, generally speaking, to drop everything on no notice and run. And that is true. Yeah. And so I am willing to believe that there were probably some, Green and BC Liberal candidates who would have run a year from now who did not run last month. That said, Andrew Wilkinson was not Sonia Furstenau. He had been leader for a couple years and should have been doing the work of getting some of those, high profile and winnable women in ridings up and running. Now, some of them probably wouldn't have been able to do it, with the snap election, but Some.
Yeah.
None is simply not good enough anymore.
No. Look, I mean, it was rumored for a long time that Christine Buono might run for the BC Liberals.
Yeah, I heard that.
Works with the Women's Health Foundation, obviously daughter of Wally Buono, but brilliant in her own right. Helped manage the business and marketing operations for the BC Lions when Wally was there, and now does the same for the foundation. Good community connections, name recognition, youngish. Probably, I would assume she's my age, so I'll say young then, right? No. Anyways,
we'll go with young. Yeah.
And solid candidate, had a reasonable start. He couldn't close the deal though, and in the end she didn't run. And I'm sure there's a perfectly valid personal reason why she didn't, and it's her decision. You can't put a gun to people's heads to run. But it was kind of indicative. Like, we heard that name around forever, and Andrew could never seal the deal. But Andrew didn't call candidates, right? Like, he didn't call the people who could have won in these ridings, whether male or female, or transgender, or LGBTQ, or people of color. Like, he didn't call anyone. Like, don't feel bad, women. He didn't call anybody. Like, Langley East, where I live, the first thing that happens when Coleman steps down is Shane Woodford, paging Jordan Bateman on Twitter, right? Did I get a call from the leader of the party asking me to run? No. Would I have done it? No. But nonetheless, you should call the people who have the ability to win. And so, I've talked to the handful of people in Langley and Langley East and Surrey Cloverdale, or a handful of them, who could have won those ridings. Now, Mary Polak and Marvin Hunt decided to stay in, but none of them were contacted about Langley East. None were contacted about Aldergrove. Aldergrove. Like, there was a real lack of candidate recruitment. This is, and then, the Diane Jansen thing just completely fumbled, which cost us a Chilliwack riding. That, to me, there's a lot of things wrong with the Andrew Wilkinson time at the helm. That to me is one of the big ones. Is you didn't do enough to go out and get the folks to run. Like, that is not something you can outsource to someone else. It's not fair to Michelle Stillwell to outsource to her and say, hey, I need you to go out and recruit a team that can win. That is not her job. Yeah. It is the leader's job to go out, and it will be the leader's job when the permanent leader is elected to go out and make sure that he or she has a team ready as early as 2023, because John Horgan's shown that he'll lie and break election dates, no problem. If he thinks he can win in 2023 and can't 2024, we're going in 2023. He'll have no qualms about doing it again. So you've got to be ready, and you've got to build that team, and you've got to build some excitement.
Yeah, and if you're watching this and thinking, well, that's not what the leader does. That maybe that's they had intended Andrew to be the closer, I guess.
No.
That's just not how it works, and I don't know how I can put it better than that. I mean, people are flattered when they get calls from the leader or the boss. There's a reason if your kid is being recruited by a university in the States, they'll get a call from the head coach. Mm-hmm. They're not going to get a call from the assistant linebacker's assistant. And you're quite right. From everything that I heard, is Andrew simply wasn't doing that. And, Christy Clark did, Gordon Campbell did, and they were premier, which is a considerably busier job than leader of the opposition, which is no small amount of work, granted. But it's got to be at least an order of magnitude when you're actually running the province. And, if Clark and Campbell could make it a priority, it made there was no sense. There was no good reason. In fact, it was self-defeating for Andrew Wilkinson to not do the same.
Yeah, look, you're exactly right. Like, why am I talking to a Rich Coleman, a Marvin Hunt, a Jackie Taggart, Peter Middlebar, or Michelle Stillwell about this? Like, all of them asked me to run or talk to me about running, but the leader didn't call. And if you're going to sign on to a team, you want to talk to the leader. Like, what is your vision? So why do you want me? Why are you asking me to put my life and career on hold essentially for 4 years, go in there and get my ass kicked every day on social media? Like, you better have a winning proposition. Like, this is why, because the values, are so important, and we've got to make sure they connect so that your kids can afford a house or whatever it is. You got to find that pitch, and he just never did. Now, he didn't do that to make things even worse. If he's not doing that, then at least be making sure you're shoring up your current caucus. Make sure that they all feel the love. They didn't feel the love either, as you're seeing by Tracy Reddy's coming out. And Tracy Reddy's is a legitimately super nice human being. the last thing she wants to do is pile on anyone. But, she was pissed off enough to see, by what she perceived as being held down, the way that women were treated compared to men within caucus by the leader, that she had to, she came out and said something. Like, it's amazing to me. So what was he doing all day? He wasn't working with his caucus. He wasn't out recruiting candidates. I'm not sure question period was going so swimmingly. Like, it's not like they were hitting those out of the park. And when they did, it was because of Mike DeYoung and Shirley Bond and Jazz Johal. What was this leader doing? Like, the platform? Okay. The platform was still a scramble going into the election. Took a while for them to get everything done. There was lots of moving pieces. And then he came out, the two big promises were the PST cut, which he never articulated why that would matter to local government or to small business, and the ICBC promise, which he clearly was uncomfortable with and never mentioned again after the first announcement. ICBC, giant issue. I'm not going to mention it again, partly because he probably didn't love it. I just what was he doing all day?
I mean, I don't have a good answer for you.
He wasn't working the press gallery.
I think, no. Oh, that actually came up in Shirley Bond's Zoom call with the media today. Is one of the questions was basically a complaint that the previous leader was probably the least accessible major party leader in living memory, which I think unfortunately is true. In fact, I wouldn't even say think. I'm sure it is. And so are you going to do that? The question was asked at Shirley, and she said, no, I'll be here. I'll talk to you as often as you want, which was exactly the right answer to give the media. I'm here to serve you, especially when you're the leader of the opposition.
Yeah.
And it's not like they have to worry
actually
about
the correct answer, Maclean. The correct answer is yes. I'll talk to you anytime you want. This is my cell phone number. Text me anytime. I will get back to you immediately.
Yeah. And I'm reasonably confident that's what they're going to do. Yeah. And I think they're also going to hold weekly avails, which is the easiest and simplest thing to set up. And there's just no reason not to do it. Again, when you're in the opposition, especially when you're facing a majority government, every ounce, every scrap of media and attention you can get is precious and difficult. And you just to turn your nose up at another 15 minutes with
Richard
the press
Sussman.
gallery and like Richard Sussman.
Man, he's so mean.
That's your job. Yeah. Make them happy. Answer the questions.
Sometimes why doesn't Vaughn Palmer write our side of the story? Because you're not friggin' telling him your side of the story. Vaughn's been around a billion years. Sorry, Vaughn. He knows, like, he's used to talking to the leaders, and he's Vaughn friggin' Palmer. Talk to him.
Again, when you're in government, yes, you probably can't have that kind of unfettered access to the premier. But guess what? Not in government.
I bet you don't think, I don't know, Maclean. You don't think Keith Baldry and Vaughn Palmer can't text the premier?
Oh, I'm 100% positive they can, but that's Keith Baldry and Vaughn Palmer. But for the rest of us, no, that's not possible. I can't even get an interview with the man.
I had his old cell number back before he was the leader of the party. I wonder if it still works. New phone.
Only one way to find out.
Yeah, that would be a quick blocked call. I'm pretty sure. So.
But I mean, that would be one to transcribe for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Oh, hi, John. Secret ballot seems important to me. Anyways,
it's Jordan from Souk.
Yeah, it's Jordan from Souk. It's Jordan from Souk. I know that drug dealer lady from wherever. Okay, I do not know that drug dealing lady from wherever. All right. I'm trying to think if there was something else I wanted to mention. So they're swearing in cabinet Thursday. Please don't make me do cabinet speculation because I find it to be the stupidest waste of time and such a lazy journalism thing.
No, I agree. And to be quite honest, I don't know the new crop nearly well enough to make educated guesses. We could probably, get about half the cabinet right, but I think Horgan's going to include some rookies. And so it would just be at a dartboard until we know. And it's going to be quite late on Thursday. Apparently it's going to go right up until like the 5 o'clock news. And so
maybe Friday. Do you want to do a little, maybe a podcast on Friday to talk about?
Yeah, let's do Friday morning. Yeah.
Friday morning?
We had talked about right after the cabinet announcement, but I mean, you'll be eating and should be.
Yes. Yes. Black Friday morning. Mark your calendars.
Oh,
bonus.
Black Friday.
Bonus.
And also to do for Horgan to do his cabinet swearing in when most of Canada is going to be sick on Thursday and watch football all day long.
No, we.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
The ICBA office.
Watching the Lions lose by 40 points yet again in an annual tradition.
Love it. The ICBA office here, my office has a television for cable, which is much loved one time a year when you get to watch the football on Thursday. We also work above Metrotown, so we are always acutely aware of when Black Friday is, because if you don't get it in the office by 9:30, you just work from home, man. Like, it's a zoo here, so just not worth it. Let's talk about cabinet then. I mean, the only safe prediction is safest houses. Adrian Dix will be health minister.
Yeah, and he's confirmed that Farnworth will be House Leader again.
Well, there you go. So
bet your
life on Dix holding on as health minister. The interesting two files interesting for me to watch in that will be who ends up in finance and who ends up in charge of Site C. Because
you're right.
Both of those are quicksand ministries. Like those are going to be, other than health, those will be the two toughest things that happen this term.
Yeah. I would suggest that David Eby will probably stay an attorney general as well. That's probably also a reasonably safe bet. But I mean, the Adrian Dix, you can bet your life, your kidneys, and your kids' mortgages on that. That's not changing.
Yeah. I can't imagine what it would take to get him out of there. Like fingernails, you'd be pulling him out. It would be terrible. Like that guy.
Well, I mean, it'd also be you would send a hugely irresponsibly bad message right now. Things aren't going well. We needed to change at the top.
Hugely irresponsible bad message, like holding an election campaign in the middle of a pandemic just as the second wave begins to crest.
Which I'm told Adrian Dix was quietly very, very much against. But because he sees the numbers every day and probably had a good idea where it was going to go.
Well, there we go. So we'll see what the numbers are. They give a written briefing today, right?
I believe so, yes.
Tomorrow they're back in the show, so we'll see.
I prefer the written briefings. Okay, well, until Friday, I guess. Until Black Friday, Cabinet Friday. I'm Maclean K. That's Jordan Bateman. Happy politics.